Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how you can embed a trendline graph inside a user control. So quite often we'll use trendline graphs to take historized data from a symbol and display it to the users. But maybe you've got a requirement, let's say you have the trendline graph is actually part of another user control that you want to duplicate. And let's say we've got, I don't know, a front, a back, a left and a right heater on your machine or your application. And because that's a group of controls and you want to have maybe enable, disable, some status lamps, you want the trendline graph to be part of that user control. So it's a valid situation that you'd need to embed a trendline graph into a user control. But then comes the issue. You have a trendline graph where you've got to then pass in the symbol that you want to historize or display. Really, it is being historized in the background. And there's a couple of steps that you have to take. This setup will work by either having predefined user controls. So let's say, for example, I had a front and a back heater and I just drag them onto my desktop view and I assign the symbols to start with. That's one way of doing it. The other way, which this will allow, is if you then want to have maybe one user control. So let's say you give the ability to show the heater status, but give the person, the operator, the ability to select which heater they're looking at, and you rebind the data to the user control. That's also valid. That will work in this example. Right, so without any further delay, one thing you have to do up front is you need to you need to include the SQLite historized NuGet package, which you find in references, manage NuGet packages. We're going to go into browse, make sure Twincat HMI official is selected, and then you'll find the SQLite historize, and you'll just hit the install button. To save time, I've done that step already. That's that done. We can shut that window down. There we go. Just save that. The next thing we want to do is just set up our historized symbols. So I've got the PLC program running in the background, so it shows up as ADS, PLC1, and I've just put them in main. My trend variable 1, which I'm going to map, and trend variable 2, which I'm going to map, and lastly I'm going to go in and say historized settings. It's actually picked up the defaults of what I had prior, so I'm going to go for 100 entries at 100 milliseconds each. Do exactly the same on the trend variable 2 with 100 milliseconds. Okay, so that means that the project now knows the symbols via ADS, and not only that, the historizer also knows what these symbols are, and it will start to historize them in the background. The next thing, we do have obviously controls behind the scenes to be able to enable and disable historizing, but that'll be a different topic. So in the way we've got it set up at the moment, it will automatically start historizing the minute the server goes live. Next, let's drag on a trendline chart, and just to prove that we have historizing symbols working, and then we'll build up from here. So the trendline chart in its most basic form, it comes with a y-axis already defined. You can define multiple y-axis, and when you pick which symbol is played out onto your trend line, or multiple symbols that are played out onto your trend line, you assign them to which axis you want, which y-axis you want. So what we're going to do here, we're going to use the defaults, but we're going to go into line graph descriptions, select this, say add. We're going to assign it to the y-axis that's already there. Otherwise, that generated, it would have actually created a new y-axis. So we don't want that. The next thing, select historized symbol, and I'm just going to pick trend symbol 1, hit OK, and that should be more than enough now to go live and show us our trended symbol. So that's good. That's the static version. So what we want to do now is to make this dynamic by having it in a user control. So in order to do that, right click. I just put all mine in a folder called user controls. Okay, and we'll follow the theme and say add new item, a new user control, and I want the user control to be heater status, because we may put more push buttons on there. I may put some buttons on anyway just to show that it is a user control. The buttons will not do anything, but I'll leave you to expand upon this example. So we're inside our heater status user control. It is dark at the back, but that's because I keep a dark theme. Obviously if you're on the light theme, you'll see a slightly different picture to me. Next, I'm going to take a trend line chart and just drag it on. And and I'm going to assign its left, top, right, bottom. I'm going to leave a little bit of space just for some push buttons, and we will sit with that. That's not looking too bad. The next thing, actually, let's just put a single button on as well. So this one on here, I'm going to say that it has, instead of, so the bottom is 100. We might need to just make that slightly smaller, just because when we put it onto the main screen, it's going to be different sizes. So this one here, I've got a height of 50. I want it to be aligned to the bottom. Take away the top and the left, and take away the width, and that should now give us a push button longer. So just to show that this is actually some form of user control that may have added functionality, which is why we want to embed things. Okay, so that's the start. The next thing we need to do is go into our parameters. We are going to go in and say this is our trend line description. Okay, we're going to be looking for a data type of trendline chart, and we're going to be looking for a trendline chart line graph description definition list. There's a mouthful. Okay, so that's what we're going to have as a parameter that we're going to push in. Potentially as well, we could also put in something like button label, just to show that we also have a user control, functioning user control. I'll do the easy one first. We're just going to assign the buttons text, create data binding into parameters of the button label. And the next thing we're going to do is in our heater status, where before we made our own line graph description, this time we're going to delegate it now to the user control, and we're going to pass in the one that's been supplied by the user. So that's it complete for the user control. Then on desktop view, go into here. We can now open up our toolbox, pull in our heater status, which we can see is so far working. And just to prove that this is now working, we have the trendline description up the top here and the button label. So I'm going to put this as front heater, which shows up. I'm going to remove this, get that out of the way, and also just do a copy and a paste. And make this one the back heater. So this is if we're going to use not static, but we're going to use user controls that exist already to say, no, I'm going to show the user a back, a front, a left, a right. They're already going to be pre-made. Each one of these, so the front heater, this trend line description, and this is the gotcha. This is the bit that will catch everybody out, including myself the first time I did this. What we need to do is to define the symbol. So this is set up as we would normally expect. It doesn't have as many helpers. It doesn't have this generated. One of the things is the first y-axis that's made on a trend line graph is ID1. So we can just jump straight in and say ID1 rather than passing in the name of the y-axis. So that's the first gotcha. The second one that we want to do is we're going to be passing in, it doesn't allow us to do it here, but I'm going to be passing in the symbol and we have to type it. So this is going to be trend variable 1. It's going to be in this one here. We OK this. Go into the second one just to prove that we can do the two, and this one we're going to say add onto y trend variable 2. If we were to run that now, it wouldn't work, and the reason behind that, I'm just going to save it, is we have to swap onto code view. So we're almost there. There's one more step. Is when we pass in a symbol to it in that view, it actually does a symbolic representation of that symbol. So that's just a fancy term to say it will pad it out and it will try to resolve it into its core value. So the instantaneous value of trend, my trend variable 1, which may have, well, it does, it has a long real inside it. So what we want to say is, no, don't be as clever as that. I've dragged in the symbol, but I only want its string, the actual name of the symbol. So what we can see here is when we scroll up and down the code that's behind the scenes, you can see here, this is where we're assigning parameters to our user controls. And you can see here's the symbol we passed in, and it's been padded out to try to resolve the base, that base value. So what we need to do is remove the percentage signs and just turn it straight back into its string, which is just going to say, no, this is the symbol I want you to historize. And I think most people would have got to this step on their own, and it's just this last step that causes an issue. We're going to swap back onto this main view here, and if we go onto live view, it should show that we've got working trends. So perfect. So tick. Anyone who just needed a set number of these on a screen, this is the solution for you so far. The next one, if we were to have a single user control, but we want the user to be able to swap what symbol is actually played out onto it, this then has the next scene where I will make these smaller just so I can keep this project as is, because this will move. Let's get rid of it. There we go. Instead of front heater, we are going to remove this. We're going to reset the binding. So both of these are empty at this stage. Right, let's just put in 2 push buttons. So this one here and my toolbox. So I'm going to let's just define our buttons first. So I'm going to just call this one front. Call this one back, not rear. Sorry. Right, so this one here, we're going to now manually bind values to this user control, and you might do this at the same time as showing it. So with the front, we're just going to do double click on it. It will open up its on pressed event. So we're going to do a right symbol, create data binding. We're going to bind the controls of that user control, which is our heat status 1, the parameters. We'll start off with the button label, and because this was the front, we're just going to bind it. We're going to write front to it. The second thing we're going to do is go in, create a data binding to the heater status 1, parameters, trendline description. And what it will do is it opens this thing back up again for us to make our own. We'll go in, say add, and the first one here, we still need to do this same trick. So that's going to be trend variable 1. We're going to assign it to the y-axis. If you write the variable in this way, if you know how to type your variable name out in its fully qualified path, you don't have to do that second step. It's only because I'm dealing with a lot of symbols and I'm not really going to remember what I'm going to do. So I'm doing it this way with that swap to the code and take out the percentage signs. So that's my first one set up, and we can just OK this. Actually, I'll just copy both of these out, save as typing. Go into rear, and just going to change this one instead of trend variable 2. OK that. And again, go back into the code behind the scenes and just look for the things that we need to swap out. So it's slightly harder to find this time, but we can see here that we're doing a write to symbol of this heat state 1 trend line descriptions, and this is the symbol we're passing in. So I'm just going to get rid of the percentage signs and the S of this one, and plus as well there's going to be the second one afterwards. You wouldn't have had to do this. Had you have just typed in that symbol name as a string, you wouldn't have to do this step. That's it. So we'll swap back, save, go on to live view. We've got the front heater, we've got the rear heater. Okay, hopefully that answers all of your questions. Slightly long-winded just at the end of the video, but hopefully that proves that it can be done. You can use user controls either statically, or you can manually write what you want to view into it. Okay, right, speak to you soon.